Hey guys, it's me Rebecca. So I am here today to discuss the books I read in July and to discuss a bit of what I plan to read in August. So yeah. And in July I read 6 books, and if you counted the books that are in my phone now, you counted 5. That's because one of them was a library book that I returned before from in this video because I just don't see a point in keeping a library book when I'm done with it, like just to hold it like for a YouTube video. So yeah, but yeah, let's get started with the first book I finished in July, which was The Prisoner of Heaven by Carlos Ruiz Zafón, and this was translated from the Spanish by Lucia Graves, and I will be given the synopsis for this. And this book, as according to the author, they can be read like on their own. So yeah. But this is about Barcelona, 1957. It is Christmas, and Daniel Harry and his wife B have much to celebrate. They have a beautiful new baby son named Julian, and their close friend Fermin Romaro de Torres is about to be wed. But their joy is eclipsed when a mysterious stranger visits the Samperi bookshop and threatens to divulge a terrible secret that has been buried for 2 decades in the city's dark past. His appearance plunges Fermin and Daniel into a dangerous adventure that will take them back to the 1940s in the early days of Franco's dictatorship. The terrifying events of that time launch them on a search for the truth that will put into peril everything they love and ultimately transform their lives. And with this, we do learn more of Fermin's past and secrets he's kept, and how the past is catching up to them in times of happiness. And we learn that Fermin's name isn't actually his name, and documents he possesses are false, and they can't be used when getting married, as it wouldn't be valid, and the priest would just call out on it. So, and we see Fermin, he spent some time in prison during the war, and we see how he befriends a writer named David Martin, who the governor of the prison wants to keep alive to help him with his work. And it seems David was sentenced to prison due to his actions, and people thought he committed, and how witnesses were paid to testify against him. We see how David deals with what is possibly schizophrenia, and how the prison environment isn't helping him. And we see what people do in order to survive, and how those in power take advantage of their position and abuse it. How when people learn the true events that concern them, they go through a range of emotions from anger and sadness to a form of acceptance. How people hide the truth from others and themselves to protect them, and to not believe the worst, a way, I guess, to protect themselves and their sanity. And this is mainly just a character's backstory I found to explain how they got to where they are, and it gave us personal conflict as the character grapples with elements of the story and how it relates to a parent's death. And I was kind of expecting like a more dramatic conflict, as the conflict we did get this wrapped up quite quickly. So yeah, overall I thought this was okay, and I gave it 3 stars. And the next book I read in July is The Labyrinth of the Spirits, also by Carlos Ruiz Zafón, and also translated from the Spanish by Julia Graves. And this is about, in 1938, during the Spanish Civil War, Alicia lost her parents at the age of 9. When the nationalists savagely bombed Barcelona, 20 years later, she carries the emotional and physical scars from that brutal era. Weary of her work as an investigator for Spain's secret police in Madrid, she's ready to move on, but at her boss's insistence, she agrees to solve one last case, the mysterious disappearance of Spain's Minister of Culture, Mauricio Valls, with her partner, policeman Juan Manuel Vargas. Alicia discovers a clue, a rare book by the author Victor Maturix, hidden in Valls' office. During World War II, Valls was the director of the notorious prison in Barcelona's Montjuic Castle, where several writers, including Matrix, were imprisoned. As Alicia and Vargas come close to finding Valls, they uncover an airy web of kidnappings and murders tied to the corrupt Franco regime. Navigating the dark labyrinths of Barcelona, she is aided by the Sampri family as well as the unforgettable Vermin, ultimately confronting the hideous missing piece of the puzzle. And with this, we do see how Alicia is trying to solve this case with pain in the hip, which was destroyed when she fell from a building during the war, and how there are limitations to what she can do, what she does, and how long she can be outside without any relief. And her friend made her this sort of brace that is kind of relieves the pain a bit, and the brace also allows her to go longer without needing medicine for her hip. And we see how Alicia is solving the case while grappling with the life she could have had, with the life she does have. How she is told that there will be a life after this case, but she knows there's no life outside the agency she's working for, and how she is learning who she can trust and who she can't, and we see how secrets or who someone truly is comes to the surface, and how she just wants to protect the Sampri family from harm while also allowing them to know the truth, while also revealing a dark part of Spain's history, and how this was a case no one wanted to solve, but it was just a way to bury history and destroy evidence. And we also see a character's obsession with finding the man who killed or had a role in one of their parents' death and getting their revenge. So, overall I did like this and I gave it 4 stars. And the next book I read in July is the library book, which was The Wall of Storms by Canva, which is the second book in the Dandelion Dynasty series. The first book is The Grace of Kings, and somewhere on screen I have edited a picture of the cover of the second book, but I'm just going to read the synopsis of the first book, as this is the second book in a series that you do need to read in order. And according to Goodreads, the Grace of Kings is wily, charming Kunigaru, a bandit and stern, fearless Mata Zandu, the son of a disposed duke, seem like polar opposites. Yet in an uprising against the emperor, the two quickly become the best of friends. After a series of adventures fighting against vast conscripted armies, silk-draped airships, and shape-shifting gods, once the emperor has been overthrown, however, they each find themselves the leader of a separate factions. Two sides with very different ideas on how the world should be won and the meaning of justice. And with the second book, we do see how those who come from certain families who are in position of power or nobility have better opportunities to learn and to be educated, while those who come from poorer families don't have the opportunity. They rely on luck, as we see with one of the characters who met their teacher at the right time and are able to be educated. And I should mention, I completely forgot that the events of the second book start 6 years after the events of the first book. Is it 6 years or 6 or 9 years? Yeah. And we see how this is really like life is a game of luck. How you get in an argument of how we're all created the same and there's no rank or difference between us until we come into this world, and who are born into families where we might have the privilege, or were born into families where we might not be so lucky. How really it is just a game of chance, and which I do like that idea. And we also see the questioning of the old ways, and if those ways should continue, or how to change the way things have always been. Those who believe in traditions should always be followed, and nothing should change. We'll try to prevent change from happening. And we see how the emperor, the current emperor I should say, wants to change who is able to be his heir, son or daughter, so the empire has the best shot in surviving, and how the empress is just trying to ensure things remain the same, and for her it's just trying to protect the empire and allow it to one into the future long after like the emperor and his friends are dead, because there is a line of trust that might not be there in like 20-30 years. And we also see how people are easily manipulated if given a reason or a sign that how the emperor should be put down. How manipulation of light, or putting the picture behind a mirror, can make people see what leaders of a rebellion want them to see. How there are forces behind the scenes pulling the strings of this rebellion, forces close to the emperor who have their own goals. And we see how a person's weakness, whether that is greed or fear or insecurity, is used against them in a plot to take out those who might hinder to success of the kingdom. How a woman has to use her limited skills or abilities to be able to fulfill her goal. And we also see how the country this takes place in, a country called Dara. They're invaded by another country where they want to enslave the people and take over. How these invaders have a weapon that the people have to find creative solutions based on information they've gathered, and about these animals to defeat them. How people in different, I would say, positions, whether that is royalty, military, or academics, have to come together to protect the country. And it's also like people who don't have such high like privilege, I guess, like even like at one point the academics have to work with those who are like thieves and whatnot. So yeah, overall I enjoyed this one and I gave it 4 stars. And the next book I finished in July was Velvet Was the Night by Silvia Moreno Garcia. And this is about Mexico in the 1970s is a dangerous country, even for Mati, a secretary who spends her life seeking the romance found in cheap comic books and ignoring the activists protesting around the city. When her next-door neighbor, the beautiful art student Leonora, disappears under suspicious circumstances, Mati finds herself searching for the missing woman and journeying deeper into Leonora's secret life of student radicals and dissidents. Mexico in the 1970s is a politically fraught land, even for Elvis, a goon with a passion for rock and roll who knows more about kidney smashing than intrigue. When Elvis is assigned to find Leonora, he begins a blood-soaked search for the woman and his soul. Swirling in parallel trajectories, Mati and Elvis attempt to discover the truth behind Leonora's disappearance, encountering hitmen, government agents, and Russian spies, because Mexico in the 1970s is a noir, where life is cheap and the price of truth is high. And with this, like, I didn't really feel connected to the characters, especially Mati. Mati is someone who is lonely and isn't where she wants to be in life, and thinks people, especially her family, and especially her mother. Sorry if the lighting angle has changed, but my battery died, so yeah. But Mati, she is looking for escapism in books and sees what is happening in her life as a story she's part of, and it seems like she's just seeking a thrill to her life as well. Might need to pay the bill on her car. We also have Elvis, who is part of a group who are spearheads, I would say, for the government to stop student demonstration and to take down communism in Mexico. And Elvis, he is this captain in the dark about the politics and the behind the scenes of the group he's in, which are called the Hawks, and is trying to survive while thinking there's no hope or life for him after the Hawks. And we see Elvis become intrigued by, I would say, the idea of who Marty is with her simple looks and the fact she likes records and books like he does. And it felt like more as though he was falling for the idea of who she is rather than who she actually is, and how Marty would compare what is going on in her life as if she's in a book, which I wasn't the biggest fan of, as when you're reading, I mean, there's no will harm that come to you while she's in a situation where will harm can come to her, and how she had nothing else in her life to compare to her situation, but comparing to books made it seem like as though she was either separating herself from reality or not thinking of the actual harm that can come in. We see how people want things to change in Mexico, and how different people have different methods to incite the change, and how some politicians are willing to listen and offer change, while others don't listen and don't want change. And yeah, with this, because of how I felt about it, I just gave it a 3-star. And the next book I finished in July was Swimming in the Dark by Thomas Jadwowski. And with this we see when university student Ludwig meets Janus at a summer agricultural camp. He's fascinated yet wary of this handsome, carefree stranger, but a chance to meeting by the river soon becoming an exhilarating and all-consuming affair. The pair spend a dreamlike few weeks together in the countryside, inhabiting a beautiful natural world, removed from society and its constraints. But in their repressive communist and Catholic society, the passion they share is utterly unthinkable. Once they return to Warsaw, Janusz quickly rises in the political ranks of the party and is awarded a coveted government position. Ludwig is drawn toward impulsive acts of protest, unable to ignore the stark economic disparity around them. Their secret love and personal and political differences slowly begin to tear them apart, as both men struggle to survive any regime on the brink of collapse. And with this, we initially follow Ludwig as he struggles with his sexuality and accepting who he is in a world where who he is isn't accepted, and how we see when he becomes close to Janusz, he allows himself to be vulnerable and start to accept who he is. You also see a world in which they don't have a lot of freedom, I would say, with the fact certain books are translated to Polish while others are not. An example of this would be James Baldwin's other books were translated to Polish, yet Giovanni's Room was not, and how people can be in a lot of trouble if they're seen as having kind of like more Western views, or speaking against the socialists, how the government controls what programs people can listen to on the radio and what is taught in school, and how the curriculum is focused on making the government look good while spewing propaganda and make people think they did help in fighting against the Germans. How there are consequences for those who listen to radio programs that don't favor what the government wants people to think. Programs that are from the West perspective and what is going on in Eastern Europe. How as well that jobs people have are determined by the government and given to regardless of skill they have or gained, and how it matters if you have favors or contracts in favor with the party. And we see how initially Ludwig wants to run away from the West and looking for freedom, while Janusz wants to stay. As to him, it isn't so too bad, and he accepts his situation and doesn't think it will change, or it's worth to change things, or that there's hope things will change. He's doing what he thinks he has to do in order to move up in the party and survive. So yeah, we do get their different perspectives, different ideas, and really the end of like of what happens to them. So, overall, I like this and I gave it 4. And the last book I was able to finish in July was The Center by Alicia Manazir. Zutaki? I'm so sorry if I mispronounced this name. But this is about Anissa El-Hali. Dreams of being a translator of great works of literature, but mostly spends her days subtitling Bollywood movies in her London apartment and living off her parents' generous allowance. Adding to growing sense of inadequacy, her mediocre white boyfriend Adam has successfully leveraged his 7th level aptitude for languages into an enviable career. But when Adam learns to speak Urdu practically overnight, Anissa forces him to reveal his secret. Adam begrudgingly tells Anissa about the center, an elite invite-only program that guarantees complete fluency in any language in just 10 days. It sounds like a step closer to the life she's always wanted. Stripped of her belongings and all contact with the outside world, she undergoes the center's strange and rigorous processes. But as Anissa immerses herself further within the organization, seduced by all that it's made possible, she realizes the true cause of its services. And with this, we do see how she wants to join the center and learn German because she doesn't feel fulfilled in her life putting subtitles on Bollywood films, and she wants to do something more and broaden her horizons. And she is looking for something and seems to be lost in life, trying to fulfill areas of her life where she can. Whether that comes from romantic relationships and being able to choose who she marries, when that wasn't the case for her parents or grandparents. And we learn how the center is like a place for elitists, as most people there are diplomats, celebrities, or high in the government, or actors, and how like the everyday person is a rarity there. How it is also an elitist, as only those who have been there can recommend it to you, and they are only allowed to tell one person. How those who end up hearing about it can attend as they haven't been invited. And how she is trying to figure out how it's possible to learn a language in 10 days and the methods used, and once she learns, she has to how things change are truly done. She has to decide if she wants to become a part of it. She has to decide if she wants to be a part of how things are done, or if she wants to be a part in changing how things are done. And we see the story through her eyes, and sometimes the way she sees other people and describe them are inaccurate, and we do learn that they do have a problem with it, as either she doesn't see them for who they truly are, or says things about them and to them that upset them, and we do get a few confrontations about it. Overall, I did find this interesting, and I gave it 4 stars. Now, that is everything I read in July and what I plan to read in August. So far, everything I read in August will be in my August wrap-up, of course. But I'm planning to continue, as I think you can see from my bookmark. I just started My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. This is about Jade feels as if she's trapped in the opening scenes of a slasher film when tourists go missing and tensions rise between her community and a celebrity newcomers to the Indian Lake shore. As a conglomerate known as the Founders begin breaking ground for their rustic mansions in what they're unironically calling Terra Nova, Jade watches as the small town she knows and hates moves towards catastrophe. This summer, as yachts complete with canoes on Indian Lake, Jade is convinced a killer will rise. I'm excited to read more of that. And after that, yep, Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. 60 years after it's okay, I'm sorry to know. I was it was discussing how it's like in world classic and whatnot. Guy Montag is a fireman. His job is to destroy the most illegal of commodities, the printed books, along with the houses in which they are hidden. Montag never questions the destruction and ruin his actions produce, returning each day to his bland life and wife Mildred, who spends all day with her television family. But when he meets an eccentric young neighbor, Clarice, who introduces him to a past where people didn't live in fear and to a present where one sees the world through the ideas in books instead of mindless chatter of television, Montag begins to question everything he has ever known. So yeah, this seems quite relevant, and I'm excited to read it through. It is either this or another dystopian I had to read when I was a sophomore in high school, and I don't exactly remember which one, so yeah. Now, that is everything I read and finished in July and what I plan to read in August so far. And that's also it for this video, so if you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment below telling me what you've been reading recently. If you want to, please subscribe to this channel, and if you want to follow me on any social media, then all those links are in the down bar below. I'll see you guys next time I post a video. Bye.